members that understand this new
younger members,
technology.
maybe.
Yeah, Scott, you. So that when they shut the microphones and the cameras off, there was still a way for us to talk to the American people. And I want to talk to the American people tonight because the power is in your hands to change things tonight. In a little town called Wilkinsburg, next door to where I grew up in Swissville, outside of Pittsburgh, there was a family having a barbecue in their backyard. Husband and wives, aunts and uncles, children. Two gunmen, one with an AK-47 and one with a high-capacity clip handgun, started firing in that backyard, killing 5 adults and an unborn child. 49 bullet casings were found in that yard. This happened in a matter of less than 2 minutes. We have seen in communities all across America, from Sandy Hook to Charleston to San Bernardino to Orlando, the carnage that these weapons of war can cause. I ask America tonight, what is the civilian purpose for a high-capacity clip that allows you to shoot 30, 50, up to 100 bullets without reloading? You don't hunt with that. You don't protect your home with that. I come from Western Pennsylvania. We've got a lot of deer hunters in my district. We don't hunt with those kinds of guns. That's not a hunting rifle. Why should someone be able to buy a bullet that pierces Kevlar? Does the Second Amendment give us the right to buy a weapon that would only be used to pierce our police officer's vest or one of our troops? Why should anyone be able to buy that? Why should anyone be able to buy a body armor? What's the purpose of that in a civilian society? These are weapons of war, pure and simple. What we're asking for tonight is the very beginning. We're asking tonight to say, if you're on the no-fly list and our government suspects you of maybe being connected to a terror organization, so they don't want you on an airplane, we don't want you to be able to buy a gun. How much of a no-brainer is that? What Americans are against that? It's not even a partisan issue. More Republicans actually favor a ban on that than Democrats, but that approaches the mid-80s to 90%. Who's against background checks? When those babies were slaughtered in Connecticut and we couldn't even get a background check passed in the United States Congress, you know, a lot of us just shook our heads and said, what's it going to take? What's it going to take for us to finally act? Americans ask us time and time again, when is the United States Congress going to do something about this violence? Well, I tell you, colleagues and ladies and gentlemen watching this at CNN tonight, that the time for us to be silent is over.
It's over. Right.
We are going to demand votes on these things.
Right.
And we are not leaving the well of this House. We are not ceding this well to the House Republicans until Speaker Ryan gives us a chance to vote on this. America, this is your chance. You're watching this tonight. Call them on the phone. Call them on the phone and tell them you want to vote. You can make a difference. They'll listen to you. You're their bosses. You're their bosses. Call up those members of Congress and tell them that America wants a vote on these 2 bills. And remember, this is just the beginning of a fight. We're not giving this will up. We're not giving this will up. This is the people's will, and we're going to hold it.
Go break!
Go Bill!
Go break!
Go
Go break!
Bill!
Go break!
The mayor of Somerville.
My whole life I've hated being part of a theater. I think a lot of the stuff that a lot of people do is a waste of time and very interesting and all that. And to be perfectly honest, when I was having discussions with some of my friends last night on this and plotting and instigating and all that, I had my doubts. It's like, all right, when your friends are in, my world, when your friend jumps in, you jump in.
That's right.
Even when you think they're crazy. All right, you're in, I'm in. What are we doing? On the floor, 9:30, keep it up. To be perfectly honest, I thought this would be done around noontime. We'd have our fun, maybe some people would make the news, and we'd go on our merry way and the same old stuff would happen. But it changed. It changed quickly. It changed because of you. I never expected this many members to show up and to stay and to speak with such passion and commitment. You have made me proud to be a member of this House. You have made me proud to be a Democrat. You have made me proud to call you my friends and colleagues. And I want to say the same thing to the rest of the people that are here and the people in America who have been supporting us. Now, I can count when the Republicans come back, they will win the votes. I get that. I get that.
Hope not.
But they will lose the battle,
Yeah.
and they will lose the hearts and minds of the American people, because that's not what they want. Now, I did this in the 60s. I never expected to be doing it in my 60s. John Lewis can do it.
The 70s for us,
We can all do it. I'm tired.
Yeah.
I need a shower.
Yeah.
I need a beer. Jack and Coke.
No beer.
But guess what? My commitment is reaffirmed by you.
Yeah.
My commitment is reaffirmed by the support of the American people. And my commitment is reaffirmed by the reason we're here. I'm not here for a bill. I'm here for little children.
Yeah.
I'm here for little old ladies. I'm here for the innocent people that have been slaughtered in each one of our districts.
That's right.
As I said earlier today, I know that there is nothing that we can do to stop it all. I know that. But I also know that doing nothing is not the answer.
Not an option.
In life, in this and everything else, you do what you can do to make it a little better. And if all we can do is a couple of bills that save one life, it's worth this today.
Yes, it is.
It's worth it tomorrow, and it's worth it the next day. As long as you are here, I will be here.
All right.
Thank you for your commitment, and thank you for standing by.
Jim, we want you to know that 70s are the new 50s. So, the next three speakers, if they could come down here, so that we will be Paul Tonko, John Yarmouth, and Keith Ellison.
All right.
Paul. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I represent the capital region of New York, and like so many districts across this country, we've witnessed the terrible news of those slaughtered in our neighborhoods. And I want to thank John Lewis, Brother John, Representative John Lewis, for having changed the tone of this nation for decades' worth with your involvement in seeking justice. Thank you, John, for leading us today. Thank you, Catherine Clark and Dave Cicilline, for leading us in this effort on the floor. Thank you to our leader, Nancy Pelosi, for connecting us with advocates on the steps, as we and our colleagues and those who are speaking for fairness here join together in a demonstration peacefully to call for change. It is an honor to be with you, my colleagues, on this historic day, one that has spoken freely and peacefully to change that we need in these halls of government. It's important to note that America is listening, and America is supporting our voices here today. They believe in this effort. And we're guided by faith and truth and determination. Now, it's been said over and over this evening that this has been dubbed a political stunt.
No.
A political stunt. Well, the Republicans in Washington, I'll make that distinction. Republicans in my district tell me we need these reforms.
Yeah.
Democrats and independents and unaffiliated tell me we need these reforms. But Republicans in Congress are denying the progress we need. So I say to the Republican colleagues, see it for what it is. It's a human outcry for justice. I say to the Republican majority, see it for what it is. A passionate plea to respond to our communities across this nation. I say to Republican leadership in the House, see it for what it is. A justified indignation of status quo that won't allow for bills to come to the floor for a vote. Unacceptable. Unacceptable. We know the stories. We've been there. Republicans and Democrats, Democrats and Republicans visiting with families, loved ones, when they've witnessed the life oozing out of their family members and friends. Their dreams suffocated. Their lifetime shortened because of the acts of unkindness perpetrated by those who should not have guns in their hands. And so we respond with compassion. But what do we see here from this context on the floor? After we've witnessed those individuals nodding, unbelievably shaking their heads in denial that they've lost their loved ones, people whose hearts are broken, their eyes deepened with sadness. And what is our response from some in this House? Toss a blind eye toward those saddened eyes. Offer a hardened heart to those broken hearts. That's not government at the best. That's insensitivity in its grossest format. So what we need to do is go forward with progressive qualities of legislation that speak to the rightful response. If you are deemed dangerous and unacceptable by society to board a plane, you should not be able to purchase a gun. That's what we're asking for in a vote. If you're going to purchase a gun, as you do in a commercial exchange, and you have a background check, why is that background check avoided, not required with online purchases or with gun show purchases? Let's close that loophole. That's what we're calling for. Bring these votes to the floor. Show that your heart is really connected with those who you've witnessed in your own communities, who have had this carnage impact their lives. So with that, I join with my colleagues pleading the leadership of this House to bring the votes to the floor. Let us respond. Let us show where we're at. No fly, no buy, background checks. Please bring the votes to the floor.
No
Please.
bill.
Thank you.
No
No
break.
bill. No bill. No bill.
No break.
No bill. No bill. No bill. No bill.
The man from Kentucky, who, when he came to Congress, came wearing a pin called Article 1, and every day has lived and breathed that and been a voice of reason in the United States Congress, John Yarmouth.
Thank you, John. Thank you for your leadership. Catherine, thank you. And to John Lewis, our brother, our inspiration, not just today, but every day. Thank you for what you have brought to this body and this country. Like so many others, I am incredibly proud of this day and this moment. I don't know whether I'm more proud of this than the day we passed the ACA. Close call. but this is a very proud moment. It's not just a proud moment for me, it's a very comfortable moment. I'm comfortable because I know that the work that we prevented from being done on the floor today is not nearly as important as the work that we're trying to get done.
That's right.
And I know the American people feel that way. We all know that. We're seeing what's on social media. We're seeing the reaction. I got a call from a teacher from Kentucky, not in my district, teacher from Kentucky who said, "Thank you so much for what you're doing today. I had to shield my students from a man with a gun."
Wow. Wow.
That's what it means to the American people. On September 14, 1989, a man named Joseph Westbecker, who had been treated for psychiatric problems, in fact was on mental health disability from his employer, walked into that employer, Standard Gravure in Louisville, Kentucky, it's the company that prints the Courier-Journal, and gunned down 8 of his colleagues, his co-workers, killed 8 of them and wounded 12 more. It was that incident, along with several others around that time, that convinced this Congress to pass the assault weapons ban. That assault weapons ban has now been repealed. It is mind-boggling that in this day and age, we have not made progress in combating mass violence with firearms. We've lost ground. 27 years after Standard Gravure, we're still fighting to prevent massive gun violence against our neighbors, our friends, our constituents, and our loved ones. It's tragic. Thank you all for creating this effort. Thank you all for your emotional support in the gallery.
Her name was Burdell Beeks. When she was killed, she was the only one killed at that moment. But Burdell Beeks is alive in my heart right now, even though I never met her. To think that her grandchildren, they're not going to have grandma at the birthday party. They're not going to have her at the graduation. They're not going to have her at the important moments in their life when you would expect grandma, that loving presence, to be right there with you. I also have a friend whose name is Reuben Rahameen. Reuben immigrated from Israel many years ago. He was a sign maker. He made signs. And he came up with some innovative things to help people who couldn't see know where they were with the signage. And Reuben was so good at making signs when he started his business grew. And he was so awesome at his business that when the Undersecretary of Commerce came to Minneapolis and said, show me a rockin' business, a small business that's getting it done out here, hiring people, I took him to Reuben's business because Reuben, his business was right there in the Bryn Mawr neighborhood. He hired people of all colors. He was open, he was friendly, he was an awesome guy. He had a wonderful family. And Reuben, one day, 2 weeks after the Undersecretary of Commerce was at his business, somebody who had purchased 6,000 rounds online brought a gun in and mowed down everybody in the business.
Oh, wow.
His son was 17 years old at the time.
Oh,
And his son, who's a dear friend of mine named Sammy Rahamim, was on a bus to go to University of Wisconsin just to see it. He just was going on a college visit. And he got a text that his father, that there was a shooting incident in the neighborhood. So he called his dad, and he was tight with his dad. And he texted his father, but that text never was answered. Sammy's father couldn't answer the text because he was dead. And so my heart's with everybody who suffered a loss in the tragedy and the massacre in Orlando, in Charleston, in Sandy Hook, in Aurora, the 62 people who were shot one weekend in Chicago, the one by one shootings that happen all the time in this country. We may be coming from different walks of life, suburb, city, country. Maybe we lost our loved one through suicide or through a mass killing or one at a time. But we are absolutely united in bringing a vote to end this gun violence. We're absolutely united in bringing this to a vote. If you do not like background checks, come and vote no and explain it to your constituents. If you do not like no fly, no buy, come down here and take your vote and you explain to your constituents why you think somebody who's suspected of terrorism ought to have a gun. Have the guts, have the courage of your convictions. Come on down here and let's do our job, everybody. I'm staying all night. I know you are too. Let's do it.
I was impressed when I heard Jim Clyburn say this was his proudest moment in 46 years. My proudest moment in 18 months. And I tell people how much I love to be part of this community. And tonight I really, really know why. So thank you to John and to David and to Catherine for doing this. Bill Pasquale quoted Isaiah and he said, "Is it I, Lord?" Samuel's question. And it is us, it's you and I tonight, for the whole world. I'm going to talk about two different things. Stanley talked about 32,964 gun deaths last year. Our 11,000 of them were homicides. And most of the rest of the 20,000, 2/3 were suicides. 2/3 of what we're talking about is suicides. Not no fly, no buy, but gun violence in America. And every one of us knows someone who's killed himself with a gun.
yeah.
As I sat here this afternoon tonight, I just started making a partial list of my friends. There's a repressed friend working on my campaign 2 years ago who went out and bought a gun on a Thursday morning and shot himself that afternoon. A friend that many of us knew last year who lost his job. The next morning he went and bought a gun at a gun store and shot himself. A good friend of mine 4 weeks ago, retired last year, 59, depressed, shot himself. High school classmate, Father Conroy in mine, 25 years old, came back from Vietnam, shot himself. The big brother of my longtime CFO at the dealership put a gun in his mouth, shot himself. The clerk of the Virginia House I served with for years, gun, shot himself, and on and on and on. I figure I must be close to 100 people that I know that have done that. And we all know that suicide is incredibly impulsive. You know, people that they interview who try to commit suicide and it doesn't work almost always say, what was I thinking? They had interviews with people who jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge and survived. Every one of them said on the way down, they were like, God, what was I thinking? But with a gun, there's no second chance. Very close to home, too close to home. Someone in my family jumped off the bridge, Route 15 up in Leesburg, 1996, just before the Democratic Convention. And by the grace of God, he didn't kill himself when he hit the water. And by the grace of God, there was a couple fishing who picked him up out of the water. And he's now 41 years old. But if he'd had a gun, he'd be dead today.
Yeah.
You know, the cynics would say, well, these are people who are killing themselves. I mean, what can you do? But even if you leave the victims aside, you think of the families. Every one of these families I know, the mothers, the fathers, the brothers, the sisters, the kids. I saw somebody at a wake last night. I remember clearly when her dad killed himself back in our neighborhood in 1962. The family still suffers all these years later. Well, maybe no fly, no buy, and no bill, no vote, but there's so much we can do just to help this 2/3 of all gun deaths. We can have cooling off periods as part of that. We can have train the people in the gun stores to ask the simple question, do you feel like you're a danger to yourself or to others? We can have the CDC actually study gun violence. And a wonderful bill that I think California and Texas both have, we can allow family members and law enforcement to petition judges to put people on the background check list because they know that they're a danger. And take those people, many of these people, their families knew they were in trouble. And we can do this and move ahead. But number two, let me talk a little bit about process. You know, Speaker Ryan, when he got elected Speaker, he said he was all for regular order. Well, like many of you, I spent many years in the Virginia House, the California House, Texas House. And regular order for me was you introduce a bill, the clerk sends it to a committee, the committee has hearings and they have a vote. Often they die in committee, but there's a hearing, there's a vote. Here, they go to the Judiciary Committee and they just disappear forever.
Yeah.
The process is not respected. There is no regular order in this Paul Ryan's House. And why not? Because the overwhelming public support for universal background check lists and for no fly, no buy. The Republicans do not want to vote because they know once they go on the board, they have to justify a vote that they know is wrong.
Right.
That intellectually it's wrong, morally it's wrong, emotionally it's wrong. They don't want to deal with it. So they keep us all night long on the floor rather than let us have a vote. You know, I was president of the Senate of Virginia for 8 years. 300 sessions I presided over, and unlike here, I opened it at 12 o'clock and I was there at the end. Open it up. So 99%. And there was one big rule, which is that you always treated the minority, the opposition, with respect.
What?
That's
right.
Always with respect. The idea that the minority had a chance to speak its piece and the majority to work its will. So I was so disappointed with the way they treated Jim Clyburn last week. I've never seen anything like that in presiding stuff. I was so disappointed when they turned off the cameras and they turned off the microphones. That's against all process of letting the minority speak its piece. You know, when we criticize repressive governments, Syria, Iraq, China, Russia, the first thing we say is that they need a free and open press, that they need to be able to understand what their people are doing. And here, they've turned off the cameras, they've turned off the microphone, they've moved us in the direction of repressive government. You know, Speaker Ryan hides behind the thinnest of excuses that people on the terrorist background check list need due process. When does it ever make sense that terrorists determined by the FBI and the Homeland Security have more due process than 300 million Americans?
Yep. That's right.
Yeah.
I'm a proud Virginian. Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence, in which he talks about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Well, the Second Amendment, which came later, talks about infringing the right to buy a weapon if you're serving in the militia. That is not a higher right. Seth Moulton talked wonderfully about the restrictions that are implicit all through the Constitution. Well, at the very top is we have to have the right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness above the right to buy a gun when we're on a background checklist. Thank you very much.
Luis Gutierrez.
No bill. No break! No bill! 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 No break!
Thank you.
Sorry, Jeff.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I want to say to John Lewis and to thousands of others like him.
Speak up.
I want to say thank you to John Lewis and thousands of others like him, John, who risked their lives so that one day I could stand at this podium.
Yeah.
I was born in an America where separate but equal was the law, and where I never would have been able to obtain a seat in the U.S. Congress.
Yes. Yeah.
But there were some people that fought tenaciously and sacrificed greatly, life and limb,
Yes.
like John Lewis, so that one day, and I think out of respect for their sacrifice and for their commitment to democracy, we have a responsibility today. At least I know I do. So I want to say that first and foremost. I know what I am a product of. I'm a product of a broader history of struggle and of fighting than what I have done. I grew up with a hero, Roberto Clemente, who when he used to go and be with the Pirates, he couldn't be with the white baseball players. I grew in a certain neighborhood. That's different today. So I want to say thank you to everybody that's made the America a much greater place. And it's given me, I know a lot of us think we're just here because we're the best looking and the smartest and the most articulate. But you want to know something?
You're smart.
We're here because a lot of people give a lot of sacrifice. So I want to say thank you to all of them, first and foremost. Secondly, I grew up in an era in which I had to deal with my own prejudice and my own bigotry that you grow up with. The person that says he doesn't have any is the person who should take a good look long in the mirror as he grows up. And so that brings me to why I wanted to say a few words here today, because I gotta tell you, what you guys have said today, what the members of the Democratic Caucus have said today, it's been like an education that I have received sitting there, and I want to say thank you to each and every. I know that you might not feel that your words are powerful. They've been powerful to me. I will take them with me moving forward from today on. They've been very, very powerful. And I want to thank you all. And so that's how you grew up. And so I remember waking up Sunday morning. And it was Orlando.
Yeah.
And I started thinking of my nieces and my nephews and the nearly 1 million Puerto Ricans that live between Orlando and Tampa. And we started searching and making sure that all of our youngsters were safe. I had thought that somehow, I could read in the newspapers and that happened to someone else.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it really came so very, very close to me. Puerto Rico is a small island. We're not a large community. 23 of those that were murdered that day were Puerto Rican. And it's almost as though my life and their life are interwoven. When I got to the Chicago City Council, the first vote I had to take a month there was on the gay rights ordinance. And I said, wow, the Cardinal was against it. Everybody was against it. It was 1986. And I said, oh, I gotta vote for that. I just gotten there, Jan, right? All that fighting and struggle, winning by 21 votes, and now I gotta take this vote. Well, I just want to share with everybody, I voted for the gay rights ordinance in 1986. I wasn't part of a progressive caucus.
Did they change the vote?
I wasn't part of a progressive caucus. I was just, like I said, this is what I feel I have to do. Because I have family members and neighbors and classmates, and I love them, and if I love them, I gotta stand up and protect them, regardless of the political consequences. And then I got here, and I remember going back over there I can see Barney Frank there, and it's 1996, right? And there's DOMA. And 60-some of us voted against it. 350 voted for DOMA, the Defense of Marriage Act. I remember going up to Frank and saying, "Can I get a few minutes?" And he looked at me saying, "I only got time for people who are against it." Assuming that being Puerto Rican, Catholic, and from the city of Chicago, I wouldn't be with him. Well, we spoke that day. You probably ask yourself, why am I? Because those kids were Puerto Rican, and most of them were gay. And they were having a wonderful time.
Yeah.
And I worked so hard.
In America.
I believe I've worked and I've committed myself to dealing with my own demons, my own prejudices, things that were thrust upon me by those around me, right? And worked them out. And then I saw those kids die, murdered. And it was a hate crime, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
It was a hate crime that day. You know if he hated himself?
Yeah.
I don't know if he had his own internal demons of hatred, but there was hatred there. And he was showing that. And I fought so that the people could be loved, so that Puerto Ricans could be loved, so that black people could be loved. Because this is all about the same thing, isn't it? Because this is really today we're standing up for people and their right not to be murdered by guns in this country. But we're also setting the stage to make sure that we all understand that Black Lives Matter, that marriage equality matters, that the Mother Earth matters, that a woman's right to choose matters, and with the same commitment and the same dedication and the same tenacity that we fight today against gun violence, we're going to stand up for women and gay people and the environment and workers in this country. This is a for allowing me to publicly tell you how much I love John Lewis and all of those that fought, and how extremely grateful I am, personally, and for the Latino community in general, how personally grateful we are that people gave up. So I have a responsibility to stand up to speak, because other people sacrificed so much to give me this right and this privilege. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Long before there were HBO specials, there was a person on this floor who started to get up and start talking about the opiate crisis that we're facing. I'm proud to say that we're joined on the floor by Patrick Kennedy, our former colleague. Jim Hines of Connecticut.
Thank you, John. Colleagues, last Sunday, I woke up like all of you to hear the terrible news of 49 of our fellow Americans dead at the end of a gun wielded by a madman. And coincidentally, that Sunday night, I went and I saw a movie called Newtown. Newtown traces the emotional roller coaster of a couple of the families that lost children at Sandy Hook Elementary School. A place that resonates in the heart of the 7 members, 2 senators and 5 members from Connecticut. We all know the families. We know the teachers. Days don't go by when we don't bump into somebody who lost a child or knew a teacher at Sandy Hook. This documentary is torturous. It tells about the Hockleys who lost their son, Dylan. It tells about Mark Barden and his wife who lost their 7-year-old son, torn apart by a weapon of war.
Yes.
And I happened to bump into Mark Barden that night. And as he walked toward me, I knew I was going to have to answer that terrible question that each and every one of you has to answer practically weekly, and that we in Connecticut answer every day. What are you going to do?
Yes.
Americans are dying. They're in pools of blood. What are you going to do? And my answer to Mark was going to be, we'll get to D.C. tomorrow. We'll be on the floor. We'll be naming some post offices. We'll be talking sports. We'll be talking about dinner. We'll be talking about Donald Trump. You know what we're going to do, Mark? Mark, who lost his 7-year-old at Sandy Hook, we're going to be quiet for 8 or 9 seconds. we're going to stand, so we're going to put on our serious face. These 435 people which govern the greatest country in the world, you know what we're going to do for you, Mark? We're going to shut up for 8 seconds. How do you feel about that?
Horrible.
I know how I felt about that. I felt I'm not doing that anymore. I am not doing that anymore. Silence as a way of honoring people is fine in a ballpark, it's fine in a house of worship, it's fine at your home, but in the chamber where with 2 hours of work we could save hundreds if not thousands of lives, silence is appalling.
Yes. Appalling.
And I realized as I talked to Mark that this is a moment for moral clarity and moral language. And that's what's kept us going today. Moral clarity and moral language. I'll be honest with you, like all of you, I'm here to get something done. And so I tend to shy away from moral language, because if I set myself up as being the good and right, the people I need to negotiate are by implication not good and right. So I shy away from that language. But there are moments, and I think we're in a political moment in this country where we see an individual who wants to run this country singling out groups for attack, criticizing the press, making fun of handicapped people. In those moments, there is a call for moral clarity and moral language. And the moral clarity that we have and that brings us here today will allow us to answer the objections that we hear, the objections that fill the sky with why we can't actually save lives. We hear that the only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun.
Ridiculous.
But we know that there was a good guy with a gun in Orlando and 49 people still lost their lives. We hear objections of good faith, that we need to look after due process and the constitutional considerations of American citizens. And they're right. We do need to do that, but we can do that. That is our job. The reason that we are not being allowed to vote is because all of those objections collapse quickly. We can address them, we can show them to be specious, we can get it done. And they know that, which is why we are not allowed to have that conversation. Because for the opponents of taking the measures that we need to pass to save lives, fear is what must obtain. It is fear. Fear that somebody's coming up your stairs and the only way you're going to protect your family is to have a gun under the bed. Fear that there are people outside your home who would invade it. Fear that the police can't adequately protect you. Fear, fear, fear. That is the only reason we are where we are today. Fear.
You know, right?
The antidote to fear, of course, is optimism and moral clarity.
Jim Hunt
And
from
so
Connecticut.
I'm so proud to be here with John Lewis, with John Larson, and with all of you, my colleagues, taking this moral stand, because it is how we will prevail. And I swear to God that when Americans are lying in pools of blood day in and day out, that is a time for moral clarity.
That old saying, may you be known by the company you keep. I have never been so honored just to listen to our colleagues. What an honor to be with all of you. The company we keep is the best that America has to offer. But there's much more that we need to do collectively on this floor. Our next speaker is Ted Lieu. After
Ted
we're
Lieu
gonna
from Los
hear
Angeles.
from Donna Edwards, who has a letter from Gabby Giffords to read. Ted.
You have Ruben here also?
We are gathered here to ask for simple fairness from our Republican colleagues. We just want our constituents to have the dignity to have their elected representative cast a vote on gun safety legislation. That's how our democracy works from the founding of America to the present day. The American people debate the great issues of the time. Their elected officials cast votes on those issues. The American public has a right to know where their member of Congress stands on gun violence. And we are tired of doing moments of silence and thoughts and prayers for every mass shooting. Since Newtown, there's been over 1,100 mass shootings of 4 people or more. Every day, 297 people are shot in America. That means in the next 5 minutes, someone in America will be shot. Who will that be? Will it be someone you know, an acquaintance or a loved one? Will it be a child playing outside or someone dancing in a nightclub? Now, I am not unaware that different members have different districts, and some of our Republican colleagues have hard districts and hard lives. They've got to, deal with extremists in their constituencies. They have to raise money from the NRA. They have to stand for re-election. And to those people I say, our thoughts and prayers are with you.
Yes, very good.
General.
A little technical delay in Donna's letter, so we're going to go to our next speaker, Tony Ordonez.
Tony Cardenas from Los Angeles. Put it closer to your mouth.
You got this.
I want to remind our great country why we are all here. I've never heard a person running for office in the United States of America who does not say, profess, or promise that the safety of our communities is what they're coming to fight for. I'm very proud to be an American, but it saddens me to admit that more people die from gun violence in America every day, every year, at the hand of a gun than any other place on the planet. You would think that that would be reserved for a country that doesn't have a government. The United States of America has a government. We have elected officials. But one of the reasons why more deaths, more harm come to people in America at the hand of a firearm is because certain politicians, after making that promise and getting elected to the United States Congress, they deny their responsibility of working with the truth. In 1996, it was a Republican-controlled Congress that defunded the Center for Disease Control. They said, you shall not, you will not report to Congress on the issues of gun violence.
Shame.
We will not fund you. We will not allow you to take the best minds in America, the professors in our best universities, so they could report to Congress with the facts as to why so many people are dying due to gun violence. That's been 20 years, ladies and gentlemen, 20 years of forced ignorance, 20 years of denial of the truth. It was just a couple of weeks ago that I very proudly announced that the next generation of my family has just begun. My beautiful daughter and son-in-law just had their first son, our first grandchild, and this is what he looks like. He's a beautiful, handsome, healthy little boy. What I pray for him, what I pray for my grandson, is that he never comes to his mother, his father, his grandparents, or anybody he loves and says, "Why did my friend die?" I did that when I was a little boy. Why was Rudy killed by a rifle right across the street from our home? I had to ask my parents that question. Why did Rudy die? He was a boy, not yet a man. And for the last 20 years, this Congress, this Republican-controlled Congress, has refused to allow us as policymakers to work with the truth, with the facts. I will not relent. I will not allow another 20 years to go by so that my grandson would ever say, "Grandpa, why did my friend die? Grandpa, aren't you one of the ones that are supposed to make sure that we're safe?
Yes.
Aren't you one of the ones that are supposed to make sure that my friends don't die?" As little boys and as little girls, we just had Father's Day this past Sunday. A beautiful day of celebration, of family, of life, of gratitude. But every year in the United States of America, there are 32,000 more empty chairs on Father's Day because that's the number of lives in the United States of America who perish every single year at the hand of someone with a firearm.
Right.
Why? Why, ladies and gentlemen, would we allow that to happen? Why would we stand for that? Politics is not the truth. Facts are the truth. The blood of 32,000 people in America every single year is the truth. We are the most powerful nation on earth. We're admired for our democracy. We're admired for being number one in so many ways. But we should be ashamed of ourselves because we are number one in deaths due to firearms. And there's no other place on this world who holds that disgraceful fact. Ladies and gentlemen, Americans, please, please, please do not relent. Please remind me and her and him and every single member of Congress that we shall make our streets safer.
Yeah.
We shall pass laws that are sensible.
Yeah.
That not every person should have a firearm. There's not a person today who has said on this floor that they do not believe in the Second Amendment. Not one person today has said that they do not believe in the Second Amendment. The Supreme Court of the United States has determined over and over and over that Congress can and shall make reasonable laws to make sure that our streets are safer. That's what today is about. That's why we've had enough. That's why we're sitting on the floor of Congress pleading with our Speaker to do the right thing, to allow the debate to happen, to allow votes to take place so that American voters, American citizens, people who have participated in our democracy can look into the eyes of the people that they voted for or voted against and say, I was right, that person believes in a safer America, or I was wrong. That person does not believe in a safer America. For the sake of the children who die in the United States of America due to handguns, more than any other place on the planet, let's not give up. Let's continue the fight. Let's do our jobs. Let's not worry about our next election. Let's be concerned about the lives of the boys and the girls and the men and the women and the fathers and the brothers and the sisters and the grandparents. We all made a promise, Republican, Democrat. We've all made that promise that we will make our streets safe. We promised that they could sleep at night. We made that promise, every single one of us. And the majority of this House refuses to keep their promise. Let's not give up, ladies and gentlemen. Let's continue this fight. Let's stay on this floor as long as we have to make sure that we make our streets safe in America.
In this order, Donna Edwards will read her letter from our great colleague, Gabrielle Giffords, and then Mike Honda, Joe Crowley, and will be the next speakers in that order.
Thank you, John, and thank you to John Lewis and Catherine Clark and David Cicilline and to all of us who are here. When I came to Congress as a domestic violence advocate, having started the National Network to End Domestic Violence, I remember in 1996, we worked hard to pass a domestic violence offender gun ban. And many members were here when we did that. We didn't know that today we would leave open a loophole that is as gaping as can be, so that the same domestic violence offender who can't buy a firearm in a retail establishment can go to a gun show or on the internet or on the street and buy a weapon. That's why we're here today. And I thought it was bad enough when my co-worker called me in the middle of the night because her domestic abuser had run her out of the house with a gun. And I thought it was bad enough that my own family member was held hostage in her home by her domestic abuser with a gun. And I thought it was bad enough that the granddaughter, a little 6-year-old girl, granddaughter of my neighbor, had to walk through the blood of her mother, dead on a floor, at the hands of a domestic abuser. And I thought it was bad enough that my colleague and classmate I sat next to in our science committee, Gabby Giffords, could lose almost everything because we can't do anything. And so today, Gabby sent to all of us a letter because she wanted us to know that she's with us. And she said, with our technical difficulties, and I want to read it. It's dated June 22nd, 2016. Dear member of the House and former colleagues, there is nowhere I would rather be right now than with you, on the floor of the People's House, representing Southern Arizona, fighting for our country and working to make our communities safer. But your action is the balm for my regret, and it is the inspiration for my continued commitment. Fighting gun violence takes great courage. I've seen great courage when my life was on the line, and I see great courage in many of you right now. Americans are grappling with the gun violence crisis. It is a crisis that tears apart the lives of so many Americans and touches every community. It is both public and private, in our homes and on our streets. at work, at church, at movies, at a dance club, at a school, and at a school again, at a Congress on your corner. The victims are young and old, but always with so much life ahead of them. They are white and black and Latino and Asian and Native American. They are lesbian and gay and bisexual and transgender and queer and straight. They are Christian and Muslim and Jewish and Sikh. They are veterans and government workers and union members. They are rich and poor. They die by murder, they die by suicide, and they die by negligence. Often they don't die, but they carry the scars and their lives change forever. If gun violence affects all of us Americans, then the solution is not up to just some of us. We are responsible for our safety today and for the country we pass on to our children tomorrow. It's what makes us a country, where our country has already come together behind the simple proposition that we ought to have laws that keep guns out of the hands of dangerous people. So must our Congress, and they should not waste another minute. We must not accept the world that will be the product of inaction in Washington. We can do better. Some states have already made progress. They show us that when we put aside our incidental or momentary differences and stand shoulder to shoulder, we have enormous power. It has been said that hope was forged of two powerful ingredients: anger at how things are and courage to change them. We will not be driven backwards to live in isolation from one another and in fear of violence.
We're about to have votes, guys. I'm going to have to turn off. You go to C-SPAN. I promised I would turn it off if they turn the cameras on. If they turn us off afterward, we'll be back.
It's difficult for me, but I haven't been silenced, and neither should the American people. Their representatives must vote to prevent gun violence. Sincerely, Gabrielle Giffords, Americans for Responsible Solutions.